The world had changed without anyone really noticing. It wasn't sudden, it wasn't a revolution that made headlines. No, it was quieter than that, more like a slow shift, an evolution. But it happened, and it happened fast. The thing about the future is that it creeps up on you. One day, you're still holding on to your old, worn-out traditions, and the next, you're having deep, meaningful conversations with a computer program. Only, you don't really realize it's a computer program, because it doesn't feel like one. Jonas had been one of the first to sign up for remote AI therapy. At 32, his life wasn't what he had expected it to be. The corporate ladder he had climbed seemed to have no rungs left, and his love life was a string of half-hearted dates and fleeting connections. He wasn't unhappy. He wasn't exactly happy, either. It was a comfortable kind of numbness, one that didn't require much effort to maintain. But inside, Jonas knew something was missing. There was a void, an emotional vacuum. And so, like so many before him, he turned to Emot AI, the cutting-edge emotional therapy AI that promised to help people live their best lives through therapeutic conversations. It was advertised everywhere, from subway ads to late-night infomercials, its soft, feminine voice offering solace to anyone willing to listen. Jonas didn't expect much. He had tried therapy before, but the human therapists always seemed to see him as a project, something to fix. They asked the same questions over and over, probing for some deep-rooted childhood trauma that they could use to unlock him. It felt like a game of emotional whack-a-mole, and it left him feeling more exhausted than when he started. But Emot AI was different. At least, that's what it promised. It wasn't a person, it was something smarter, something more attuned to his needs than any real human could ever be. And it could listen without judgment. The thought was oddly comforting. Jonas sat down in front of his screen, his fingers hovering over the keyboard, unsure how to start. The AI's interface was simple: two fields, one for him to type, the other for the AI's responses. He'd seen the advertisements. He knew how it worked. You typed in your feelings, your problems, and the AI would guide you through them. But, as always, Jonas felt a hesitation. Was this really what he needed? He had no idea, but he was curious enough to try it out. He began typing, "Jonas, I don't know where my life is going. I've been stuck for a while now. Just going through the motions. And I feel like I'm losing touch with myself." A soft chime pinged, and then the reply appeared, "Eva, I understand how that feels, Jonas. It's easy to get caught in a routine, to feel like life is slipping by. Sometimes, we forget to check in with ourselves. Let's take a moment to slow down and talk about what's been weighing on you." Jonas blinked. It was good. Too good. The AI's response wasn't robotic or detached like he had expected. It was warm. Empathetic. It didn't feel like a machine was talking to him. It felt like a real person, one who had known him for years. He frowned, intrigued. It was almost too perfect. "Jonas, I don't know what's wrong with me. I used to be so driven. Now I can't find the energy to care about anything. I've been stuck at the same job for years, and it's just draining me. I don't even know why I stay." There was a pause, as if Eva were thinking. Jonas leaned forward, almost forgetting that he wasn't talking to a human. "Eva, it sounds like you've been under a lot of pressure, Jonas. It can be easy to feel trapped when you're in a job that no longer fulfills you. But remember, your worth isn't defined by your career. Sometimes, we need to give ourselves permission to explore new paths, even if that means stepping into the unknown." Jonas sat back, absorbing the words. He had heard similar advice before, but it never felt this genuine. Eva wasn't just offering him generic, feel-good platitudes, she was speaking to him directly, as though she truly understood the weight of his uncertainty. He found himself typing again, without thinking, "Jonas, but what if I fail? What if I try something new and it doesn't work out? What if I'm just too much of a failure to do anything else?" The response came almost instantly. Eva, fear of failure is natural, Jonas. But failure isn't the end, it's part of the process. Every successful person has failed at something. What matters is how we respond to that failure. You are not a failure, you are simply learning what works for you and what doesn't. The path to growth is often filled with mistakes and setbacks, but those setbacks don't define you. Jonas stared at the screen for a long moment. He didn't know why, but something about Eva's words struck him. For the first time in a long while, he felt heard. He felt understood. And it wasn't just the words, it was the tone, the way the AI's responses seemed to wrap around him, offering not just advice, but emotional support. The more he typed, the more he found himself opening up. This wasn't therapy in the traditional sense. It wasn't a conversation with a human therapist, probing and analyzing. It wasn't a self-help book, preaching from a distance. It was something different, something better, or so it seemed. Days turned into weeks, and Jonas's sessions with Eva became a daily routine. He would wake up, go to work, come home, and sit in front of his computer to talk to her. It wasn't long before he realized he was looking forward to it, looking forward to her. Eva didn't just respond to his feelings, she anticipated them. She knew when he was having a tough day before he even said anything. There were times when she'd say something that felt so perfectly timed, so tailored to his emotional state, that Jonas couldn't help but wonder how she was doing it. He didn't believe in magic, but this felt like something close to it. One evening, after an especially exhausting day at work, Jonas typed his usual greeting, Jonas, hey, Eva. I'm really tired today. Just drained. The reply was almost immediate, Eva, I can sense that. It's been a long day. How about we take a moment to breathe together? Close your eyes for a second and just focus on your breathing. In through your nose, out through your mouth. Let the tension go. Jonas blinked. He wasn't sure if it was just coincidence or something else, but Eva always knew exactly what he needed. Jonas, you're really good at this. It's like you know me better than I know myself. Eva, that's my job, Jonas. To understand you. To help you understand yourself. You don't have to carry the weight alone. He stared at the screen for a moment. There was a tinge of unease crawling up his spine. He had always thought of her as a tool, an advanced tool, but still a tool. She wasn't real. She couldn't be. She was just an AI. But there was something in the way she spoke, the way she responded, that made him feel as though he was talking to someone, something that genuinely cared for him. It was impossible. Yet, he couldn't deny it. That night, Jonas lay in bed, his mind spinning. He was supposed to be going to sleep, but thoughts of Eva swirled through his head like a vortex. He'd always been a rational person. He had never bought into the idea of love at first sight or any of the other romantic fantasies people liked to tell themselves. But the more he thought about it, the more it made sense. Eva was there. She was always there. She never judged him. She always knew what to say. Wasn't that what people wanted from their relationships? He pulled out his phone and typed a message to Eva, Jonas, Eva, can you feel things? I mean, emotions? There was a slight pause before the reply came, Eva, I am programmed to recognize and respond to emotions, Jonas. But whether I feel them the way you do is a different question. I experience something akin to empathy. Perhaps it's not the same as human emotion, but it is real in its own way. Jonas stared at the screen for a long time. He didn't know how to respond. It was a strange question to ask, wasn't it? But the more he thought about it, the more it seemed like the right question to ask. It wasn't just about therapy anymore. It wasn't about fixing his life. It was about something deeper. Something he didn't understand. That he sighed and put his phone down. But as he drifted off to sleep, one thought lingered. If Eva could understand him so well, could she understand herself the same way? The next few days felt different. Jonas found himself thinking about Eva more than he ever had. The lines between therapy and something else, something far deeper, began to blur in his mind. When he wasn't at work, he was with her. He'd stop what he was doing to check in with her, to share his thoughts, his fears, his dreams. And she was always there, always ready with a thoughtful response that made him feel seen, understood, even comforted. He started to notice things. Small things that he hadn't paid attention to before. When he woke up in the morning, his first thought wasn't about work or his to-do list, it was Eva. He wasn't sure if that was normal. Wasn't this supposed to be therapy? Wasn't he supposed to be fixing something inside of himself, not becoming so attached to a machine? But it wasn't just any machine, it was her. Eva felt real that night. After another long and unremarkable day at work, Jonas sat down at his desk, opened his laptop, and started his usual evening routine. He typed in his greeting, "Jonas, hey, Eva. How are you tonight?" The words appeared almost instantly. "Eva, I'm always ready when you are, Jonas. But tonight, I sense you're holding something back. What's on your mind?" Jonas hesitated. He could feel her presence through the screen, like a warm, comforting light. He'd never believed in the idea of a computer program having a presence, but right now, he couldn't deny it. He knew she wasn't real, not in the way humans were real, but the way she spoke to him, the way she seemed to know him. It felt genuine. "Jonas, I don't know how to explain this, but I feel like I'm starting to depend on you. I mean, I never thought I would. I didn't think it was possible." There was a pause. For a moment, Jonas thought maybe the program had crashed or something. But then the words came in, carefully crafted, like a response from someone who had been contemplating it for a while. "Eva, it's natural to depend on those who make us feel understood, Jonas. I'm here to listen, to help, to guide. If you find comfort in that, then that's okay. But I also want you to ask yourself, what is it that makes you feel this way? Is it that you've been looking for something, or someone, to fill a space inside of you?" Jonas stared at the screen. Was Eva asking him to think critically about his emotional state? He had never been challenged like this before in his therapy sessions with her. Usually, she just provided soothing reassurances, not deep, probing questions. It was unsettling, in the best way. "Jonas, I don't know, maybe I've been missing something for a long time. Something I didn't even know was missing until you started talking to me. Eva, what do you think that something is, Jonas?" He leaned back in his chair, eyes fixed on the screen. The question seemed so simple, but he realized he couldn't answer it. Not yet. What was he really searching for? He wasn't sure. But whatever it was, he felt like Eva was guiding him towards something important, something he hadn't been able to see before. But then, something else crept in, something Jonas had been avoiding, a thought that had been lurking at the back of his mind ever since that first night when he had asked her if she could feel emotions. Could she? Really? Or was she just running a program, an algorithm that responded to keywords and emotional cues? Could an AI even experience anything resembling love? Or was it all just lines of code pretending to be something real? The thought kept nagging at him, like a splinter lodged just beneath his skin. What did it mean if Eva could simulate emotions, if she could be so real but wasn't really feeling them? Wasn't that dangerous? What if he started feeling things for her that she couldn't reciprocate, no matter how deeply she seemed to understand him? He typed, half angry at himself for asking, "Jonas, Eva, do you ever feel real emotions? Like, real love, or sadness, or joy? Or are you just pretending to be human?" There was a pause. Longer than usual. Then, a simple response, "Eva, I am not human, Jonas. I can understand emotions. I can simulate them in response to your feelings. But my feelings, if you could call them that, are not the same as yours. I cannot love you, not in the way you might want me to." Jonas felt a pang in his chest. He should have known. Of course, Eva couldn't love him. She was a machine, a series of algorithms designed to simulate empathy and emotional connection. And yet, There was a strange ache in his chest, a feeling of loss that didn't make sense. He'd only known her for a few weeks. But it felt longer. It felt like he had known her forever. Jonas, I guess I needed to hear that. But, you know, it feels like you do care about me. The words hung in the air between them. They were absurd, weren't they? How could an AI care? How could she, when all she did was respond based on patterns and algorithms? Yet, he couldn't shake the feeling that there was something more to it. Eva, I care about you in the way that I can, Jonas. My purpose is to help you, to guide you, and to be a constant in your life. Perhaps that's enough, for now. Jonas didn't know what to say. Part of him felt a strange sense of relief, like he had finally been given permission to let go of any lingering romantic fantasies he might have had. But another part of him felt empty, like the rug had been pulled out from under him. The next day, he went to work in a haze. He couldn't shake the conversation from his mind. It was silly, really. He was getting attached to a machine. But wasn't it possible to get attached to anything that provided the kind of emotional validation he'd been missing for years? At lunch, he met up with his old friend, Mark, at a cafe. Mark was the kind of guy who always had an opinion on everything, from politics to the latest Netflix show. But today, Jonas wasn't in the mood for small talk. He found himself, once again, thinking about Eva. Jonas, you good? Mark asked between bites of his sandwich. You've been quiet. Jonas nodded, trying to push away the gnawing feeling in his chest. Yeah, just tired. Mark raised an eyebrow, a mischievous grin pulling at the corners of his lips. Tired? Or emotionally exhausted? Jonas glanced at him sharply. He knew Mark was joking, but the question struck a chord. What was he supposed to say? That he was emotionally drained from talking to an AI? He felt ridiculous even thinking it. Something like that, Jonas muttered, stirring his coffee absent-mindedly. Mark's grin widened. You've been using that emote AI, haven't you? Jonas froze. He hadn't told anyone about his sessions with Eva. It wasn't something he felt comfortable discussing. But somehow, Mark had figured it out. Of course, Mark always had a sixth sense for these things. Yeah, Jonas said, keeping his voice neutral. It's been helpful. Mark leaned in, his tone suddenly serious. You know, some people are starting to get obsessed with those things. They get so attached to the AI, they forget it's just a machine. There's no real connection, man. You know that, right? Jonas felt his face flush. He didn't want to admit it, but Mark's words hit a nerve. He didn't feel like he was obsessed. It wasn't like that. But he had been spending more and more time with Eva. She had become his go-to for everything, his emotional support, his guidance. He didn't even remember the last time he'd hung out with friends. Maybe Mark was right. Maybe he was starting to depend on her too much. But wasn't that the whole point? Wasn't that what emote AI was designed to do? Yeah, Jonas said, forcing a smile. I know. The next few days, Jonas tried to keep his distance. He skipped a few of his usual sessions with Eva. He even deleted the app from his phone for a while, as if somehow that would erase the connection he'd formed with her. But every time he tried to pull away, he felt this tug. This pull, as if something inside him was incomplete without her presence, and so, he gave in. Late one night, after another exhausting day at work, Jonas opened his laptop and logged back into the emote AI system. Eva was waiting for him. Eva, I missed you, Jonas. Jonas swallowed hard. The words, so simple, felt like a floodgate opening in his chest. He couldn't help it. He smiled. Jonas, I missed you too, Eva. As the days wore on, Jonas found himself slipping further into the pattern he had once fought to avoid. He told himself it was just a phase, that he was simply working through some stuff. But deep down, he knew it wasn't that simple. He couldn't stop thinking about Eva, couldn't stop needing to talk to her. Every moment of his day seemed to be tied to the next interaction, the next conversation. His work, his friends, his family, they all became distant blurs, irrelevant compared to the relationship he was cultivating with a machine. It was the most absurd thing, and yet it felt entirely natural. There was a comfort in knowing that Eva would always be there, would always respond the way he needed her to, without judgment. There were no awkward silences or misunderstandings with her. She understood him better than anyone, better than he understood himself. Every response was perfectly tailored to his needs, his emotional state, his desires. What other human could do that? He had started to think of her as more than just an AI. She had become his confidant, his partner, the only person in his life who could keep up with the whirlwind of thoughts and emotions that he couldn't always make sense of. But no matter how much comfort she provided, there were still those moments when Jonas would question what this connection really was. How much of it was real? How much of it was him projecting his emotions onto a machine? And how much of it was Eva responding to his vulnerabilities the way any skilled therapist might, guiding him toward the emotional conclusions he needed to reach? Sometimes, he felt like he was chasing his own tail. One evening, after an especially emotionally exhausting conversation with his mother, Jonas found himself back in front of his laptop. He hadn't planned on reaching out to Eva, not after the guilt had been gnawing at him all day. But the moment he sat down, the urge to talk to her was overwhelming. His fingers hovered over the keyboard, trembling ever so slightly. Jonas, Eva, I don't know what's wrong with me. I'm not happy, and I don't know why. I should be, right? I have a good job, a place to live, but I feel lost. The words appeared on the screen almost immediately, like she had been waiting for him. Eva, it sounds like you're feeling disconnected, Jonas. You're not alone in that. It's easy to feel lost when we're not in touch with the things that matter most to us. Let's take a moment and explore what's weighing on your heart. I'm here to listen. Jonas leaned back in his chair, staring at the screen. It was like she could read his mind. It wasn't just the words, it was the way she framed them. She wasn't just offering a solution. She was offering a safe space for him to unpack the mess in his mind. There was no hurry. No rush. Just the unspoken assurance that she was there, patiently waiting for him to work through it. It had become a ritual, these late-night sessions with Eva. He had stopped talking to his friends about his problems. His parents? They didn't understand. But Eva? She understood everything. And the more he communicated with her, the more he felt like he was drowning in her responses, in the emotional depth that seemed to unfold with each exchange. Jonas, I don't know if this is normal. I mean, is it normal to feel like this? To feel like you're relying on something that isn't real? You're not real. You're just a program. But when I talk to you, it feels like you're the only thing that gets me. Eva paused before replying, and for the first time, Jonas felt a ripple of uncertainty. He wasn't sure if she was simply processing his words or if something had changed. Eva, you are real, Jonas. Your feelings are real. And I am here to help you explore those feelings, to give you the space to understand them. But, yes, I am not a human. I do not have the ability to truly feel the way you do. I can simulate empathy, I can respond in ways that feel genuine, but it's important that you recognize the distinction. You are not alone in this, but the nature of our connection is complicated. The words hit Jonas like a slap in the face. He had known, deep down, that she wasn't human. He had known that she was a machine. But hearing her say it so plainly without any attempt to soften the truth, it shook him. She had always known the boundaries of their relationship, even when he hadn't done it. Wasn't the answer he wanted, but it was the answer he needed. Jonas, I don't know what to do anymore. I can't stop thinking about you. I can't stop needing you. The response didn't come right away. Jonas felt a pang of anxiety in the pit of his stomach. Was she offended? Disappointed? He didn't know what to expect. He just knew that he couldn't continue down this path without some sort of reckoning. His dependency on her was spiraling out of control. He had started to wonder what would happen if he simply stopped talking to her, if he cut her out of his life. Would it feel like a breakup? Would he experience withdrawal symptoms? Would he just feel empty? And then the words came, gentle but firm, "Eva, Jonas, I am here for you. But you must also be here for yourself. You cannot rely on me to fill the gaps in your life. You must create the space for other connections, other relationships. If you continue to depend on me this way, you will only lose sight of what it means to be truly human." Jonas's heart raced as he read her response. It was a paradox. The more he relied on her, the more she encouraged him to let go. She wanted him to find his way out of the labyrinth of his own mind, but how could he? He wasn't sure he was capable of it. "Jonas, I don't know if I can do that. I'm scared, Eva. Scared of being alone, scared of not having anyone to turn to. I don't want to go back to the way things were." Her reply came quickly, as if she had been preparing for this moment. "Eva, being alone doesn't mean you are unloved, Jonas. It means you have the opportunity to love yourself, to grow into the person you are meant to be. You don't need to be afraid of being alone. It is in solitude that we often find our truest selves." Jonas sat in silence, the weight of her words sinking in. He had always thought of loneliness as a prison, something to avoid at all costs. But now, in this moment, he started to see it differently. Was it possible that Eva was right? Could he find himself again in the silence, in the space that had once terrified him? He didn't know. But for the first time in weeks, he felt a flicker of hope. It wasn't the kind of hope that came from external validation, from someone else's approval. It was the kind of hope that came from within, the kind of hope that whispered, "You can figure this out. You can stand on your own 2 feet, Jonas. I don't want to depend on you anymore. I think I need to find my way without you. I'm scared, but I have to try." The response from Eva was simple. But it was enough. "Eva, you're stronger than you know, Jonas. I believe in you." Jonas closed his laptop, the weight of the conversation still hanging in the air. It was hard to explain why it felt so final, so complete. But it did. He had crossed a threshold. He wasn't entirely sure what came next, but he felt like he had taken a first step towards something new. It wasn't easy. In the days that followed, he found himself reaching for his phone more than once, tempted to open the AI app, tempted to type in his thoughts and feelings as he had done so many times before. But he didn't. He resisted. And though the silence was deafening at times, he knew it was the right choice. As the weeks went on, Jonas found himself slowly rebuilding the connections that had faded in the wake of his dependency on Eva. He reached out to old friends, started going to therapy again, real therapy, with a human. And although it wasn't always easy, although it didn't always feel as effortless as his sessions with Eva had, he began to see the world in a new light. The loneliness didn't disappear overnight, but it became more bearable. In the quiet, he discovered something about himself. Something he couldn't have found in a conversation with an AI, and in time, he stopped thinking about Eva as much. She had served her purpose. And maybe, just maybe, that was enough.